Now available in paperback and ebook, The Man Who Rules the World. John Haynes must bring together men and gods to overcome a threat that seeks to destroy the planet. The Man Who Rules the World. Now available in paperback and e-readers everywhere. I recently got a chance to take a look at the trailer for Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is going to be the next series as related to the MCU on Disney+. And I really liked that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier captures the spirit of the Captain America movies that were a part of the MCU, but I really wish that Chris Evans would have done this storyline as another Captain America movie. Now, the storyline they're getting ready to adapt was called Captain America No More / The Captain, and it came from the late 1980s, and it was written by the legendary Mark Gruenwald. And in this storyline that it looks like they're doing, Steve Rogers gives up the shield because he doesn't want to follow the Commission's authority, and they go out here and look to find a new Captain America in John Walker, a hero that was more like the 1980s action heroes like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jean-Claude Van Damme and your Michael Dudikoff and many others used to play in the 80s. And this would have been a very fantastic storyline for your Chris Evans to participate in. Unfortunately, Kevin Feige decided to go in a completely different direction as related to Captain America in the MCU, and Chris didn't want to play Captain America anymore. So instead, we're getting a substitute as related to this story, and I really fear that this substitution may really dilute the heart and the spirit of those legendary Mark Gruenwald comics that practically redefined Captain America and let everybody know why Captain America is important and why Steve Rogers is essential to the role of Captain America. Now, the producers of this series, it looks like they're trying to go the adaptation route, and they're trying to adapt that story, but I really fear that they may miss the heart of what that story was all about, because Steve Rogers, as I see it, is completely irreplaceable as Captain America, and what they want to do is do this whole series where they're going to try to figure out who will be the replacement. Sam Wilson, the man who he blessed with the shield, or will it be Bucky Barnes, also known as the Winter Soldier? Will it be either one of them, or will it be the John Walker character? And I really am not a fan of this change to the story because it really changes the heart of the story and what it's about. Now, the action sequences in the trailer were quite fascinating and compelling, but again, I'm just not a fan of the substitutions taken with this story, because the build-up to this story was about what made Steve Rogers a hero and what made him essential as a hero, and it also led to him having a confrontation with his arch enemy, the Red Skull. That was the big payoff, but all of that is being diluted as related to the story, and instead of the Red Skull, we're getting Baron Zemo, and Baron Zemo, it looks like he's going to substitute for Johann Schmidt, and he's going to substitute for what the Red Skull was trying to do in trying to discredit superheroes in general. But the Red Skull in the comics, he was only out to discredit Captain America and tarnish the name of Captain America by having this John Walker take over as Captain America and then wind up with him becoming frustrated and overwhelmed due to these manipulations that turn him into the Crazed Cap. And this Crazed Cap is a lot like John Paul Valley from Nightfall, where he was practically going berserk in the later stories Knight's Quest and Knight's End, and it all led to the return of the original Batman in those stories. And I really, while I like the sequences here in Falcon and Winter Soldier as related to the characters and character development, again, I really wish we could have gotten a Captain America #4 that really would have delved into this story, because I believe it would have had more of an impact as a story with your Captain America after the Infinity War getting this whole attack on him, and then this leading into more of an exploration of psychology as related to the Avengers, because the whole Captain America and the Winter Soldier, the reason why it was one of the best films in the MCU was because it explored a bit more psychology than the other MCU films, and I really wanted to see that type of stuff developed in this one. Now, this one has some fun banter that's like Butch and Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and the sequences of action are very nice, but they also have a problem in that some of the action sequences in Falcon and Winter Soldier are a bit repetitive. And this is a big problem with a lot of the MCU films that have been as of late. A lot of the films just feel like they have been the same thing over and over again, and it feels like the films don't have anything original or unique as related to their action sequences. And I really would like to see them get a little bit more creative, and I know they might not be able to do that based on the budget that they have as related to these MCU series, that they really don't have the money to get really creative. But I'd like to see a little bit more uniqueness as related to the action sequences, so that we can get something that doesn't look like it came off an assembly line. Because one of the big problems with the MCU's series these days and their movies is that everything feels like it comes off an assembly line. It reminds me a lot of the 1970s, 1980s GM, where an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme looks like a Chevrolet Monte Carlo and a Buick Regal, because they all share the same body types. And in some cases, like the G body, they can actually switch out parts because all of the same bodies have the same frame, and with the exception of a few minor differences, they practically are the same car, with the exception of engine and possibly transmissions and powertrains. So the bodies are basically the same, and that's a real big problem for the MCU. It's like everything is practically coming off an assembly line these days, and it doesn't have that creativity and imagination. And that's one of the problems I have with the MCU, is that it feels very, very like manufactured, and I really want to get that distinctness as related to their stories and their characters, and that would be something that I'd like to see done with their properties. I mean, with everything that's shown here, it's an interesting adaptation, but I really wanted to see this Captain America No More the Captain story done in a movie. And yes, this one does feel like the movies, but I think it would have been done better as a complete movie with Chris Evans. I mean, this story deserves to be treated with a lot more respect, because it was one of the defining stories as related to Marvel in the 80s, and I believe it deserves an adaptation that stays true to the spirit of it. And the whole Bucky and Falcon fighting over who will wield the shield, that's just not something I wanted to see. I mean, what's on the screen is promising, but it's just not my cup of tea, because this is the story I grew up with. This is one of the stories that got me into comics and collecting comics regularly, and I really wanted to see this story done justice, because when this story was being run in the 80s, it was one of the best comic stories of the 80s, and one of the best examples of the whole deconstruction model, because it showed us not only the deconstruction of Steve Rogers, but it also showed us how he was reconstructed as the Captain, and how he had the heart of a hero. And that part, I believe, was something that sadly has been stripped of this whole series, and it stripped it of something that was at the heart of what makes Marvel really great, because that story was really about being what makes a hero is the man inside, not the costume. And I sadly think that's going to get taken away, because they want to push the whole idea of Sam being the Falcon in order to appeal to the identity politics crowd. But that's not really what I think would work well in the case of this series. I mean, I believe that you had a chance at a really great series had you just managed, or a Captain America 4 movie that could have been a masterpiece. But instead of doing that, we're getting a watered down adaptation that has some heart to it. But as I see it, it's not my cup of tea, because they took some of my favorite stories and they changed them up and made them into something that they weren't, and that really diluted the message of what they are. So I like what I saw with Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I'm not a fan of what I saw, because this is, as I see it, a really bad direction for Marvel Studios, where they're going out here and instead of them trying to stay true to the source material like they did with 2008's Iron Man, what they're trying to do is deviate from the source material, and we're heading further and further into the Schumacher zone, where we're getting material that isn't like the source material, and we're heading more and more towards the whole Batman and Robin style storytelling that practically collapsed the entire superhero genre. So when I look at this series, it's another step in that deviated direction that the MCU has been in since Spider-Man Homecoming, and I'd like to see Kevin Feige pull things back and get back to staying true to the characters, staying true to the spirit of the characters, and staying true to the heart of their stories, because once you start making deviations, we start heading further and further into the zone of that led to the collapse of the superhero genre. Movies like your Superman 4 Quest for Peace, movies like your Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and movies like the absolutely horrific Halle Berry Catwoman. And I'd hate to see the MCU head down that road, because if your Kevin Feige is that creative and imaginative to bring comic books to the screen, then you would think he would try to do his best to stay true to the source material and make sure that those stories stay true to what they originally were. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications featuring heroes and heroines, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, and the Thetas, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, ISIS, All That Glitters. The goddess next door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed, all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.